So let's open up our controller here. And we're just going to keep building off of the previous assignments that we had. I mean, the previous demos that we had. And I'm going to integrate some of these new things into there. And the one that I really wanted to show is the data method and the underscore method. Okay. Now, the reason why these are important is because oftentimes you might have thought, in your previous assignments, should I make... It says here that, the button to delete something should be just like a plain link. Does that mean that I should code it as a GET request? Right? You were kind of locked into making sure that all links were all GET requests, right? You had to do it that way, and that all forms were all POST requests, right? But if you look at the RESTful routes, some of these RESTful routes include things like the patch method and the delete method, and you might wonder, how the heck do I implement these, right? So I'll show you guys how to do that right now. So let's try to do something for deleting a item, and let's just exit this one, and let's go cd into /vagrant, cd into June, cd into advanced queries. Okay, and let's say, I am recording this. All right, so our server is running. Now let's take a look at what our server is outputting. If I go to localhost 3000, so we've gotten here. Now, what is the first route in our controller? Let's just do get schools. So it's get/schools like this. Cool. So let's say I wanted to be able to delete some schools and maybe the students associated with them. How could I create a button that sends any request that will delete a particular school? Let's go over this one together. So what would I want to work from first? We can go about it two ways. We could start from the controller. We could start from the template, the index.html.erb view. Which way do you guys want to go? Let's start from the controller, because I think that'll be something that's more understandable to you guys in the beginning. So let's say right here, let's say def delete. Okay. Now, how do I delete an item in Active Record?
Set it as a variable.
Okay. Well, here we have to do it by a particular ID, right? And then, okay, so wherever that's going to be, right, it's going to be stored somewhere in like a school ID in params. Okay? So let's do something like that. And then what do I do with that variable? Okay, school.destroy. Okay.
Do you need to save after that?
You don't need to save. What do we need to do? We probably want to redirect to, at the very end, redirect to schools. But that seems about it, right? So let's move on into our routes. Let's think about how our route should look. So if we look at the RESTful syntax, let's try to follow that. What is the RESTful syntax for deleting an item? Well, here, it seems like that you just send a delete request to product/2. Okay? So let's try to do it the old way first, with the way that you probably did it in things like Python, and then we'll try to upgrade it to how Rails does it. Let's also call this destroy, because that's what destroy. So that's what's called in the RESTful routes. Okay, so here, what's one way that we've typically written this in like Python? we wrote it as a GET request, right? Because it was usually a link. And then I would say something like schools slash, I don't know, colon school ID slash delete or something like that. And that would be schools hash destroy. Right? Everybody understand what's going on here? So I've made this route. Why did I call this colon school ID?
So whatever number they put there will be saved as, or it'll assume that that is a valid school ID.
Yeah, right? It's this connection that needs to happen. Here to here, right? The params is looking for something called school ID. So the thing that you should know about params is that params contains the key value pairs of everything in your form and everything in your route. They're all put together, okay? They're not separated like they were in Django. So keep that in mind. Okay, so now what's the next file we need to touch? We need to touch index.html.urb. And here, this is the for loop for our schools. So let's say right here, I wanted a nice little button that said, or a nice little, a little link that said something like, we have an A tag. Let's just call this destroy this school. It sounds a little evil. So if I refresh the page, right, there's this link here. So what would the href be here? So let's take a look at our routes.rb. Let's take a look at our index.html. So how should we format our link so that it gets sent to this route? Like that? Leading slash?
Yeah.
Okay.
Slash with the, is it number sign with the open curly? Or,
That only works inside of Ruby code, right? We're inside of a template, so we need to use the template tag. But I get what you're trying to say. The way you do that inside of a template would be, you know, the less than sign, percent equals that one, right? That little arrow. And then right here, what's the value we're going to stick inside of this template? This little template tag right here.
It's an integer.
Right. So what value, what variable are we going to put in here?
School ID.
School.id, right? Because that's school is an object. We're trying to access the ID of that object. And then we could say slash destroy. Let's check it out. Oh, it's slash delete. Oops. Right. So what that should do is that should, you know, make our thing delete, right? So if I delete this school that doesn't have any people, so it says school /2 /delete. So it doesn't seem like our routes are updating, right? So this is kind of a problem that tends to happen when you start dealing with developing in a Vagrant box, is that sometimes your changes don't show up. So there's a couple ways that we can fix this, okay? The first way is just to restart your server. It's a little frustrating because sometimes you don't know if you need to restart your server, so you just start doing it all the time, which makes your turnaround time a little longer on making changes. So there's a few ways that I found help students fix this. One of them is by changing their config file. So if you go to config/development.rb, so it's under config, let's actually look at development. Yeah, it's in config environments, okay? Then let's just add a new line here. And basically what this says is when the default is if you detect a change in one of your files, then the Rails application will reload just that file. If you set it equal to false, what that does is every time you make a new request, Rails reloads every single one of the files. So what it does is it makes sure that everything you do is completely updated. So if I go back, I refresh the page, I should be able to delete the school. No, it didn't work. Okay, so we're gonna have to restart. Let's try it again. Did I set the cache? Cache classes, false, that's fine. That should be fine. Let's see if it works now. Whoa, there we go. Delete the school. Now it's gone. Okay, so a few ways that you can make this work. Honestly, it's something that's just gonna be like a day-to-day kind of nuisance about using Rails in a Vagrant box. Just know, just have a way of figuring out whether or not you need to restart your server. So like, for example, if I make a change to my routes file and it was really clear that it didn't have this route in there, then I'm like, okay, I need to change it, right? Another easy way to check is like if you start just like throwing random text into your templates, but it's not showing up, then probably you need to restart, okay? So now that we've done that, this is the old way of doing it. Now, how can we leverage what Rails does so that we don't have to create all these routes that are, that contain these verbs that could be used by the actual route itself? How can we make this more RESTful? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new version. So what would the RESTful version of this look like again?
/schools/school ID.
Okay, what kind of request is it?
To do what?
To do the same thing that we just did. Yeah, to destroy.
Post.
It'd be a delete request. Okay. Right. That's the HTTP verb. It's the method. Right. So delete schools/school ID. Let's take that to schools #destroy. So if you look here, our routes look a lot cleaner. Now, how do we change what we wrote initially to fit this new model? Well, obviously we got to get rid of the /delete. That's pretty self-explanatory. But how do I tell this link that I want to make it into a delete request? Interesting, right?
Say method equals.
Yeah, we can do something to change the method. And the way that you do that is by saying data-method equals delete. Okay, now what that does is it tells Rails that when I click this link, that it's not just a GET request, but to transform that GET request into a delete request before the client sends it to the server. Okay, so if I refresh this page, I should be able to delete the school, and there we go. Okay, and let's just make sure that it's the correct version of the link. Yep, sure is. Data-method equals delete, right? So that's super cool. And what that lets us do is, I'm not going to go over that version exactly, but one thing that you can also do is you can create a form that does not send a POST request, but rather sends a PUT request, because that's a different type of request, okay? So what this really allows you to do is just, be super customizable. You don't have to be locked into form as a POST request. Link is a GET request. You can make it do whatever you want, right? And that's kind of something that I find pretty cool and also pretty necessary, because as we move on through these assignments, they'll ask you to create forms that update, right? And they ask you to keep it RESTful. So the only way that we can really write this is by using these custom data methods, okay? The syntax for doing it in a form is a little different, but I'm sure you guys could just read up on that. I just wanted to show you an example. Okay, so any questions about this? Okay, so I guess what I'll do is, how many of you guys think you'll be able to hit at least the start of controllers by today? Yeah, a few people? Okay. So what I'll do is, for those of you who need to catch up, would it be helpful if this was more of like a work day, or do you want me to kind of have some guided help so that you guys could catch up faster, or you guys like spinning your real wheels on a certain assignment and you guys need to kind of like feel like, oh man, if I only got help on this, maybe I'd be faster, or you guys just need time?
I think we all need help.
Yeah? Okay. Like what? Like models? Do you want me to go over one of the models assignments? Would that help out? Yeah? Okay. I could do something like blogs, post messages 2 is kind of a doozy, but it is the hardest assignment that I find in this whole section. So how about everybody just tries to get to blogs, post messages 2? At least take a crack at it. I know a few of you guys have already started it, so that would be helpful, I think, if I went over it today. Okay, so let's do that at like 3. Sound good? Okay, let's do that.